Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hi, it's me, Egbert, E-G-G-B-U-R-T, the owner of this radio station. I invite everyone to listen, no matter if you're young, old, black, white, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, heck, I even want real estate agents listening to my station. Yes, even Rick and Tracy. You're all welcome. Now, it's back to my Goodwill ambassadors, Brad and John.
And by the way, we do this show live. If you're listening to it on the podcast or on the YouTube replay, we do it live every Monday through Friday. Not this Monday. We were off on Monday. But we do it live from 7 to 8 o'clock. You can stream it live. All you do is just go to bjshow.co or you go to egbert.com. There's a link on there. You have to click on Egbert's nose, and you'll come directly to the streaming link, and you can just listen to us live if you want. But if you want to listen to us on the delay, that's fine as well, too. John, okay, you ready? 2 more stories, okay?
I'm ready. You got a hot box story for us.
First off, my Arby's story, okay? A friend of mine that knows I am a huge hamburger fan texted me last Friday morning, saying, you're not going to believe it, but Arby's, yes, the roast beef place, America's roast beef, yes, sir, Arby's has a new hamburger which is excellent. So I'm thinking to myself, got to find myself an Arby's to go to. So I end up at the Arby's on Mid-Rivers Mall Drive out there just off of Highway N. And what's weird is one side of the road is Cottleville, the other side is the road, St. Peter's. So I'm in St. Peter's. So I walk in the door. Lady, is sort of ignoring me. I'm the only person in the waiting area there, and she's walking back and forth and like, hey, I'm a customer. I'd like to place an order. And so finally she looks at me and she says, oh, would you like an order? I go, yes, I would. So I tell her, I said, do you have that new hamburger? Oh, yes, we do. And she says there's 2 varieties of the hamburger. I order the first one, she says. And I said, can I get that in a meal? She says, yes. So she gives me my cup. I go over to the place, and I hear some murmuring about hamburger. Didn't quite pick up there's something between her and the guy who's in the back. He looks like the manager, and I hear hamburger. Okay, no problem. I fill my cup and I go sit down at a table. And after I come in, there's like 3 or 4 people behind me. Person behind me gets their order. Person behind that person gets their order. Person behind that person gets their order. Person behind that person gets their order. I'm still sitting there. So finally, after I'm about ready to go, okay, what the hell happened to my hamburger? About 10 minutes later, a young lady, not the same young lady that took my order, walks out to me and she says, my manager told me to come out and tell you that we don't have hamburgers. I said, huh? And she says, we don't have hamburgers. I go, well, I ordered it and she took my order. Yeah, she shouldn't have taken it. We don't have hamburgers. I go, what am I going to do? She goes, I don't know. Let me get the manager. So she walks back, and out comes this dude, and he says to me, hey, man, he says, she never told you that we don't have hamburgers? I go, no. I told her 3 times to come out and tell you we don't have hamburgers. He says, that was something we tried, and he says, it went over too well, and we went through all our stock of hamburgers, and we won't have them for 2 weeks, and we'll have them in 2 weeks, so come back in 2 weeks. And he says, let me go get you your, no, he actually had my money in my hand, my refund. And I said to him, I've been here for 20 minutes now. You're giving me my money back. Why don't you make me something? And he says, and he still hands me my money. And he goes, what do you want? I go, I don't know. Surprise me. So I'm thinking to myself, there's no way in hell this guy's going to come back out. So 2 minutes later, he comes out with a tray with French fries and a drink and this really delicious sandwich that I didn't know what it was. It was some kind of roast beef with bacon on it, and I'm going like, this is so bizarre. And and so I got a free lunch out of the deal. Okay. Here's my story. God, this is Brad's story time. Should I not do? We're not really doing it.
No, Brad, but hold on. So would you say now, if you're that manager? I mean, you experience both the worst of customer service and then okay customer service. Like, by the way, the very least he could have done after you just lost 15 or 20 minutes, the very least he could have done was given you a free meal.
Well, he did. That's what he did.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, Brad, that's bare minimum. Like, I know that in this day and age, we feel like we should applaud him. but we're applauding him for being a decent human being. And by the way, what kind of crummy employees does he hire that he dispatches one to go tell you there's no hamburgers and she doesn't do it right away?
It's so weird, you know. I mean, like I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, this is like some crazy out of body experience. Okay, but once again, it's like, okay, it's like, you know, talk to anybody that hires people nowadays. You know, most of the time they're looking for a pulse and a heartbeat. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much it.
I do know.
Okay. How did I get to tell this story? My ex-boss, and this is in a roundabout way, this is a Anheuser-Busch story. I told this story, this has probably been 8 or 9 years ago, to a friend of mine who worked at Anheuser-Busch at the time, very high-level person. You know, matter of fact, it's sort of sad because most of my friends that worked at AB, when they saw the handwriting on the wall, they cashed out of their stock and they got the hell out of there. So this person is no longer with AB, okay? But I'm having this conversation with this person, and she's asking me about my old days in the radio business, and she's like, you know, and a name comes up. My ex-boss's name comes up, and because he was involved with a lot of things because Ron Grubbs, my ex-boss, after he left our station, he bounced around for a while, and then he ended up as a sales manager at Fans 590. At the time, Fans 590 did tons of business with Anheuser-Busch because, you know, beer and sports, you know, that goes, okay? So this was his account, so he worked it, and she knew him from the fact that he was at Fans 590 and liked him and thought he was an interesting character, and I told her, I said, the guy was my boss. And she says, well, I've heard some interesting stories about him. And I go, you want to hear an interesting story about my old boss, Ron Grubbs?
Yeah.
Okay. One day, my friend who I work with, who's the chief engineer, Jeff Andrew, we were like the go-to guys for Ron Grubbs. And the interesting thing was, and now Ron was not, at the time when I worked for him, I didn't like him. I love him. He's dead. I'm sad. You know, I miss the guy because, you know, he's one of those guys, when you work for him, it wasn't fun. But when you didn't work for him, he was like the nicest guy in the world. He was like, you know, he was treated differently. So he comes back one day, and I'm sitting in the studio, and Jeff's in there, and he walks in and he says, I need you guys to find me something. And we said, okay, what do you need? And he says, and this is old school kind of stuff because younger people may not identify with this. He says, you know when you go to the doctor and they stick that x-ray on the wall and they turn the light on and the light shines through the x-ray film and you read the x-ray? We go, yeah. He says, I need one of those boxes. And we're going like, what do you need that for? Well, I just need the box. Okay? So Jeff and I, you know, once again, this is the old days. So we grab the yellow pages. We look at medical supply. We call a couple places, and sure enough, we find a place in downtown St. Louis that sells these boxes. You know what I'm talking about? It's like I
know exactly what you mean. Yeah, you would put like a transparency in front of it, and then the doctor would show you, here's the terminal lump in your lung.
Right. Well, you hopefully wouldn't see that. But for you young folks, the x-rays didn't magically show up on the screen 10 seconds after they took them. They actually had film in the x-ray machine, and they developed the film, and then it was on a big piece of like acetate or something like that. It was like a big print, but it was dark, and they would put it on one of these light boxes and turn on the light behind the light box, and you could read the x-ray. So we find this box, and we tell them what, you know, we call them. They said it's going to be X amount of dollars. And he says, well, we'll go down to Debbie and have Debbie write a check. So Debbie is the accountant. So we go to Debbie. Debbie writes us a check. And she always, what's this for? And we go, it's for Mr. Grubbs ordered it. She says, well, he'll have to send me because she was like, have him send me a note, a memorandum that he needs. So, okay, we go back to his office. So, and we get the check. So Jeff and I drive down and we buy the thing. We bring it back to the station. And we say, Ron, we got your box. And he says, let me see it. So we open it up, and he says, well, there's no cord on it, because this one was one that like they literally would put on the wall, and they would wire it up to a light switch. There was electricity that went in behind it, had a knockout in the back of the box, and you'd put it on the wall, and you'd hit the light switch, and the little thing would light up. And he goes, well, I got to have a cord on it. I got to have a switch on it. So we go, okay, fine. So we take it back to the engineering room. We drill a hole in the side, put a switch on the side, put a cord on it, and we get it done. So we get it all done, and we take it up at his office. And he says, okay. He says, take it back to the engineering room. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. So we're going like, okay, what's this? And he says, we get back there, and he says, can you picture hanger things on the back of it. Okay, we do that. We actually had them there, and we stuck them on the back. And he says, stick it on the wall. So we drilled a couple things in the wall, put it on the wall. So he says, plug it in. So we plug it in. We go, okay, what's this about? So he's got a big manila envelope, like kind you'd have an X-ray in back in the day. You remember that? You know,
I do remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he pulls out an X-ray, and he puts it on the light box. There's a little clip on top that holds the X-ray, and he looks at us and he says, "Watch this." Okay. First off, that's the last words of most Hoosiers as they kill themselves on a motorcycle on YouTube. Like, watch this. Okay. So he flips on the light switch. I swear to God, for those of you driving in the car right now who have kids in the car, you might want to tune to a different radio station for the next minute. Okay. So the X-ray comes on, and it's an X-ray of a woman's pelvic region, like from the belly button down to like mid-thigh, and she has a Coca-Cola bottle inserted into her body in a particular orifice. Get what I'm saying, John?
I do. Okay, so it's pelvis, so we can eliminate the ear and the nostrils.
Right.
Okay, I got you.
So,
and are we sure that the brand is Coca-Cola?
Well, you can tell by the shape of the bottle. I mean, it's like it has that distinctive shape to it. And Jeff and I are looking at it like, what the hell is this? Some woman's got a Coke bottle shoved up her blah, 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 blah. Okay, so Jeff and I are like, and Ron looks at us and says, "This is for my buddy John Now." John Now was the president of the Coca-Cola bottling company. At the time, they were in Maryland Heights, and John and Ron were like best buds. At the time, John Now was Coca-Cola bottling was the number one client at the radio station. And this was a gift that he was going to give to John Now, and John didn't know about it. This was going to be a surprise. So Jeff and I say to our boss, "How did you get that X-ray?" So Ron sort of laughs and says, "I have a friend of mine who's a doctor, and this is his girlfriend, and she was up for it." And he says, but they had to take the X-ray about 5 or 6 times because they couldn't get the exposure right, because either the bottle would show up real prominent and her pelvic region wouldn't. So they had to adjust the radiation each time to get, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this poor lady, she's going to die of cancer in 5 years.
Yeah,
you know?
But what a way to go.
So this is his doctor buddy who brings his girlfriend in. "Hey, honey." And what they did was, and he says, well, of course, she didn't put the bottle up her blah, blah, blah. We put the bottle behind her, and we put it sort of between her thighs and her butt cheek, so it looked like the bottle was up her blah blah blah. Okay, you know, so
Sure. That sounds like a cover story.
So I tell this story to my Anheuser-Busch friend, and her jaw hits the ground, and she says, "John Now?" And I go, "Yeah." She says, "Spell it." I go, N-A-U, John Now. And she says, "Oh my God, I know him very well." And I said, "How do you know him?" Well, after he left Coca-Cola, Augie Bush III saw what he did with Coca-Cola Bottling Company and thought he was like a rock star. And Augie Bush III personally hired him to work at AB. And he came to work here, and he was incredible, and he moved his way up through the ranks. And the deal was that when he got hired by Augie III, he said up front that he wanted ultimately to own an AB distributorship. So Augie III agreed and said, "Okay, fine, here's the goals. You hit this goal, this goal, this goal, this goal, this goal, and I'll give you an AB distributorship." I haven't looked recently, but she told me that he got the AB distributorship in Houston, which at the time was, I think it's Silver Eagle Bottling or something like that, which was the second largest AB distributorship in the country. And that's John Now. And
holy cow, Brad.
So this is my ex-boss, Ron Grubbs, and I could sit and tell you stories all day long about John Now. I mean, about Ron Grubbs. About one day, he calls me at the day before. He calls me and Jeff, and he says, "What are you guys doing tomorrow?" We're working. "Well, no, you're working for me." So what did we do? He says, "Meet me in the parking lot at Coca-Cola bottling company at 7:30 tomorrow morning. Okay, what are we doing there? We got a truck. Once again, his buddy John now lent him a Coca-Cola truck, one of these great big Coca-Cola trucks with the liftgate on the back. What are we doing? Ron got caught with his girlfriend at his house, and his wife was throwing him out of the house.
Oh, yeah. You told the story, Brad.
We moved Ron to his mom's pool house, where he lived in his mother's pool house. I mean, this was my boss, Ron Grubbs.
Now, remember to... Go ahead, Brad.
I was 25, he was 35, and at 35, he was on wife number 5 already.
Well, that's good. That's productive. Now, remember this girlfriend with the soda thing? I just Googled it. And she sued Coca-Cola. Did you see this?
No, go ahead. For what?
No, she said that the acid in the Coca-Cola actually affected the pH of her vagina.
Well,
but you know what the judge said, Brad?
Go ahead. What?
It was a baseless accusation.
I'm not going to touch that.
I don't know. I might for the right price and then take the bottle back and get my 10-cent deposit. Depends on what her face looks like. You got it. The face is intrinsic to the vag, You and your baseless statements, Brad.
Say goodbye, John.
I mean, you got to really watch the pH down there. Bye, Brad. See you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?